It is 7:02 p.m., so I call the meeting of the special meeting of the Verona Common Council for Wednesday, June 11th, 2025 at 7:02 p.m. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next one, the roll.
Alderperson Helmke.
Present.
Alderperson Weiss.
Present.
Alderperson Lytle.
Here.
Alderperson Tucker-Long.
Here.
Alderperson Swanson.
Here.
Alderperson Harrison. Here. And Alderperson Hooks is absent and excused.
All right, we got enough people for a quorum. So we will move on to item 4, public comment. If any members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so. And I guess if you could come up here. Seeing no people approaching for public comment, I will move on to the approval of the minutes from the May 27th, 2025 Common Council. Corrections or motions to approve? Alder Swanson.
Move to approve the minutes.
Motion by Alder Swanson. Is there a
Second.
second? Seconded by Alder Helke. Last chance for corrections. Seeing no hands, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the May 27th, 2025 Common Council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? And the minutes are approved. We'll move on to item 6, which is mayor's business. 2 things. One, thank you everyone for being flexible and being here. I know this isn't our normal spot. I appreciate it, and I will try my best to talk loud. If you can't hear me, I guess let me know. And then 6A, we have a discussion and possible action regarding the appointment process for the filling the vacant District 1 alderperson seat. So typically the way we've done this is kind of just open it up, maybe by Friday of this week or whenever, and just say, all right, 1-to-1. So it's like first meeting in June, which is this one, and then we would basically make an appointment at the second meeting in June, have people fill out the questionnaire, and then maybe at the meeting give a couple-minute presentation, and go from there. Something like that. Anything to add, Corey?
I don't think so. I think in the packet, we said July 14th would be the meeting we would appoint somebody. I don't know if that's what you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it?
Or sorry, not 14th. Whatever the second meeting is.
It is July 14th. That's the second Monday. So it would be, since we're technically at the first June meeting, first July meeting. Does that work for
We
everyone?
can change it if people have other opinions.
Okay. I guess I entertain a motion to do just that.
I'll make a motion to start the process for filling the vacant District 1 alderperson seat with a nomination on the July 2nd, the first meeting of July.
Motion by Alder Hope, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Harrison. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the appointment process for filling the vacant District 1 alderperson seat as described by Alder Helke, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? That motion passes. That concludes mayor's business. Item 7, announcements. Any announcements from the council? Alder Tucker-Long.
I have anniversary cards for everybody to sign, so I'll be passing those along, but make sure you sign them before you leave today.
Excellent. Any other announcements? Quick, and then Alder Swanson.
If everybody could stick around for a little bit after the meeting to help Mara put the room back together, that would be appreciated.
Awesome. Alder Swanson.
I am confirming that I will be out of town for much of the next approximately 4 weeks. It's unclear precisely when I'll be returning, but I will be attending in absence as much as able, which should be every meeting. I don't have anything else going on. I just won't be there.
Got it. Any other announcements?
Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to item 8, administrative report. Mr. Olive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one tonight, and that is that Lieutenant Fairman, one of our police lieutenants, graduated from Command College this last weekend, and that's a really good program. It's a joint venture between UW-Madison and the Wisconsin DOJ Training and Standards Bureau. And out of that program, I think it's like 6 weeks of in-person training, not all at once. But anyway, you end up with what's called a Certified Public Manager certificate with that as well. So congratulations to him, and onward, upward. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions for Mr. Olive? Okay. Oh, sorry. Oh,
Do we intend to send any other lieutenants to that training?
I'm unsure.
what's the question?
The question is, do we intend to send any other lieutenants through the command college program?
Yes, in fact, Lieutenant Hatfield has already signed up for it.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hall? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 9, which is the engineers report.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've got updates in the engineers report. Country View Road, there's some additional work on utilities. So there's trenching along Country View Road. Southbound lane, Pond 1 is should be done by now, and clay material is being delivered to Pond 2. Next updated item I'm seeing is there are Edward Street plans were just reviewed at the preliminary plans were reviewed at the Public Works Committee earlier today. And well, 6 we'll update this in the report, but grouting and casing is primarily done. Televising is underway, and then test pumping. So that project is getting in the final stages right now. Badger Mill Creek, there's an update on there. There's still some restoration work that's ongoing, and hopes anticipated to be done soon. Lower Badger Mill Creek Interceptor, the district and I found out just earlier this week that the work along Shady Oak Lane may be delayed until after the Ironman triathlon because of concerns over being able to get it finished beforehand. So we're currently working. The district is currently reviewing the contractor's request and the process. And so just wanted to give people an update that might be delayed to that time frame. And let's see. Hardin Glen is there's some storm sewer box culvert work that's getting finished. And I think that's, well, I guess one thing that's kind of been, on the stormwater webpage updates, Mara actually contacted me earlier today. So we are working on making some refreshing content and making, just providing better public outreach going forward related to stormwater improvements. And so Mara's been awesome at helping that. She was able to work with Glacier's Edge Elementary just before school ended to be able to have them the kids help with the storm drain mural project. And so there's some video, we're looking at making that available on the Ripple Effects page, as well as the City of Verona webpage. And that's all I've got for updates. I'm happy to answer any questions if I'm able, and if I'm not, I'll bring that back to Carla and be able to report back later.
Any questions on the engineers report? All right. We'll move on to item 10, which is committee reports. First up, we have 10A Finance Committee. Alder Humphrey.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion for payment of the bills in the amount of $929,777.18.
Motion by Alder Humphrey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Harrison. Alder Humphrey.
Yeah, we have 3 major bill payments. The first one is for $300,774 to AECom for miscellaneous engineering services. The second one is to Madison Metro Sewerage District in the amount of $97,142 for Ardent Glen connection fees. And the third is to Water Well Solutions in the amount of $147,021 for well 6 rehab.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on the motion to pay the bills? Seeing none, all those in favor of paying the bills in the amount specified, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? The motion passes. Alder Humphrey.
Yes, I make a motion for the acceptance of the 2024 financial statements. Is that,
Or should we listen?
or we should listen to
We should
them.
listen to it
We should listen to them first. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm like trying to scroll down around. Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
How we doing?
Good. Yeah. Nice to see all of you. I should be familiar, but I'm John Rader, and I brought along with me Taylor Bogley. Taylor's a big part of the audit, has been for the last couple of years, so I'm glad that she could join me tonight. I'm going to spend most of my time on some materials. I think you all have it as part of your packet, but it's just financial highlights. It's a few pages on the governmental funds and then 3 pages on the 3 different utilities. And point out a few things to you as far as where the city landed at the end of the year. So go through this. If you have questions, just let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Really kind of nice to be in this facility. I grew up in Verona. I think I've mentioned that to you in the past. I've never been to the senior center though, so it's pretty neat. My mom used to volunteer here, so I was calling her. She doesn't live in Verona anymore on the way here, so I'm going. So it's a wonderful facility, it sounds like. So just a couple things before I hit on the highlights. I want to mention the audit did go really well this year. It always goes well, but I point that out this year because of 4 main things. One, we issued an unmodified opinion. Okay, that's a clean opinion on your financial statements. Kind of take that for granted, but there's now 101 accounting rules that have to be adhered to. They don't all apply to the city, but most of them do. It's a lot of work to make sure that your financials are prepared according to GAAP. We also did not have any material, I don't think actually any entries this year for the audit, either on the governmental side, like I'm very involved with, or the utility side either. And that's pretty notable. That's pretty unique. We do have some audits like that, but it just doesn't happen that often. And that's been the case here in Verona for the last couple of years. So hats off to Brian and everybody that he works with. Not just to get ready for the audit, but also to keep your records in good shape throughout the year, especially around budget time. So you've got reliable records. That's really critical. He's also very well prepared, which keeps down your audit costs, which means that we can focus on the audit and there's no delays in getting the report out. We ask for a lot of things, and when we come in, it's ready to go. So it goes pretty much like it should, and we appreciate that. And that also gets us here doing this meeting now versus July or August, very timely issuance, just like it has been in the past. With that said, I'm going to go through these highlights. So do you all have it in front of you? You can see it? Okay, great.
Can you talk a little louder?
I can do that. Yep.
Do you want me to put it on the screen or are you?
I think it was already under the like splash screen that was up there. We just pressed
Do you
the
want
X
it
on
or are you?
I don't need it. I've got it. Paper. Paper guy. I can talk louder though. Here we go.
I don't know. Do you just stand up here?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
See? I'm a mouse guy.
I know, I have a mouse person, but I
All right.
don't have one though.
So this first page, thank you. So this first page is focusing on the fund balance of the general fund. As you know, the general fund is your primary operating fund of the city. And in fund balance accounting, you can have up to 5 different categories at the end of the year, kind of like buckets. And I'm going to start at the bottom here in this kind of simplified bar graph. And non-spendable, it's just a slice of the total amount, but it's $242,000. That constitutes amounts just like it sounds. You can't spend it. So they're made up of prepaid amounts, long-term receivables that are in your equity, but they're just not available because you're not going to receive them probably for another year plus. Just up a little bit from last year. Nothing restricted, nothing committed. Assigned is the next category, and that went up considerably from $971,000 up to $2.7 million. And it's made up of 2 things. One is 2.2 that you've applied to the budget that you're operating right now to balance your budget for 2025. And then $510,000 that you've set aside for compensated absences or retirements. And that's a brand new category for you. And that's wisely done because when people do leave, there's the amounts, the vested benefits that have to be paid out. So to try to save for that, if you're financially able to, is a really good move to avoid fluctuations, large fluctuations in your general fund as people do retire. So that's why that amount increased quite a bit. Everything that's left flows into the unassigned, and that went from 6.1 up to 6.3, so it's up $266,000. That's completely liquid. It allows you to apply it to next year's budget or unexpected expenses, whatever it may hit the general fund. So overall, you can see that top bar, your fund balance went up in the general fund by about $2 million. And that's summarized here partway down this kind of high-level income statement. But the revenues came in at $1.8 million above the budget. And that was driven primarily by permit revenue. It's about, when you look at all the different various forms of permits, came in about $388,000 over budget. but it's really investment income that was a driver for that. The market was very strong. We saw this everywhere we went for the last year's audits. And so that was $1.3 million over. You wisely so budgeted considerably for that, and it came in very strong. And so you have that favorable variance there. Expenditures on that side were under budget by $781,000. And two things stood out when I look in the back of the financials, and there's a lot more detail in the back of the financials. But police was under budget by $576,000. Planning was under $54,000, and Parks and Rec were under by $42,000. So again, the fund balance grew overall by that $2 million, just over $2 million. Get this done. My kids would be laughing. That plays out into your fund balance policy. So again, this is your general fund. And how does your general fund compare to your budgeted expenditures? Your policy says you're going to try to maintain at a minimum 25 to 35% of the subsequent years, so 2025's budgeted expenditures in the general fund. So that's that. Those are the two lines, the light blue and the black. That's the range of your policy, minimum, maximum. The red line is where you've been for the last 5 years. So you've been above your policy for the last 5 years. Your policy also clarifies that any excess goes towards capital items. You're at 46% at the end of 2024. It did go down this year. That's, again, because you moved amounts out of your unassigned into your assigned for the comp abs and a balance this year's budget. If you're curious, those blue dots are other places that we audit in Wisconsin of similar size based on population. So pretty close to the cities. All right, shifting gears a little bit here, taking a look at debt. Page 3 is focused on the debt from a statutory sense. So how much debt do you have outstanding based upon your debt capacity, which is 5% of your equalized value. That's played out or plotted out in that black line. And so your debt limit went up to $213 million, so it's up 6.8%. Pretty strong growth over the last 4 years. That red line is the GO debt that you have outstanding, and that's been inching downwards over the last 5 years. This year went down about $400,000. So you're using 17% of your debt capacity. The city itself has a more restrictive debt policy. That's generally what we see because most places would not want to issue it all the way up to the debt limit. Although I have seen in the upper 80%, we have very young, very active TIFs, but that's unusual. But your policy brings that down a little bit. Instead of 5%, it uses 3 3/4 of GO debt that's backed by the levy. And so that would actually calculate it out to be, instead of that $213 million, your debt limit, according to your policy, would be $156 million. And your GO debt outstanding that's supported by levy dollars is down in this bottom table here. So it is $28 million. So again, well below where your policy stands. The other forms of debt you have down here, and the utility does have some GO debt, but it does not, there's no revenue debt. Years ago, the city did have revenue debt, which then ties up some cash and other things because of the covenants, but nothing outstanding there. You have comp abs, compensated absence, that's what we've been talking about. That's at $1.7 million. There was a new accounting standard that had to be implemented this year, GASB 101, that reevaluated that. Most places went up. I forget which way it trended here in the city, but I don't think it was a significant change. And then again, taking a look at debt, but how much does the city pay in debt service, principal and interest together, compared to your other non-capital governmental expenditures? So we're not talking utility funds. This is all governmental funds, TIFs and capital. And so that's been inching downwards for the last 5 years. We generally recommend around 20% or less, and you've been above that for the last 5 years, except for this year, you're right around that 20%. Other places we audit of similar size, again, are those black dots in there, 21 to 17%, somewhere in that range. It's hard to compare municipalities across, so I always put a word of caution out there. It's more about debt management. Do you have good debt management? Of course you do. You work with your financial advisors to make sure that TIFs can have a big impact on this. And I know your TIF debt has gone down, but it still plays into this as well. You know, and you have active and successful TIFs too. So, but just out of curiosity, we put those in here. I think I'd focus more on where the red line has been and where it is now. Any questions on those before I talk about the utility funds?
Otherwise?
So, and I think I heard you correctly on this, but the debt service to non-capital expenditures being, having historically been above what's typically recommended, that's not something that you're particularly concerned of. I'm going to repeat this back in my own words to see if I check my understanding.
For sure.
So that's something that you're not particularly concerned about, or you don't think we should be concerned about, based upon the type of debt that we have and the fact that it's a significant chunk of the debt is from TIFs that are active and ongoing, and there's an expiration date, and it results in growth and an increase in the tax base and this sort of thing.
Yep, I would agree with everything you just said. And I mean, this is a community with a lot of growth going on as a whole, even outside the TIFs, right? And so you're going to see higher debt service in a lot of those situations. And as you'll see, as I touch on the next three funds too, all the funds of the city are in good financial shape. So if you're struggling or something, it could be because there's too much of the expenditures going towards debt service, kind of like the federal government. But point being that I don't have any concerns from what I've seen. And that 20% isn't anything that's really written. It's just a general benchmark that our firm puts out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just curious, the choice of this as kind of a metric, the debt service against kind of ongoing non-capital, that's chosen because that's looked at as more of a must pay every year as opposed to capital, which can fluctuate more.
Exactly. In that, debt service has been, the debt has been issued to finance that capital. So capital goes, and that's one of the quirks of governmental accounting, is it flows through. When you issue debt, your fund balance grows, and when you spend it, it goes down. So that's why you pull it out of you generally try to pull it out of the general fund or anything like that, create separate funds for that activity to get a lot more consistency in your primary operating fund. But yes, I mean, it does fluctuate a lot. And so that is why we pull out, try to get apples to apples each year for that comparison.
Is that one of the items that debt rating agencies would look at? Would that be?
I don't know about that one, to be honest with you. Fund balance levels, they definitely do. But that's probably more of a question for somebody from Ellers, or maybe Brian would know from sitting on those calls.
I mean, they do look at what debt you have out there. I mean, we have to do a whole chart for them and everything.
Thank you.
But I know there's been concerted effort to bring that down, and you can see the results of that it has.
Other questions from the council? I have one real quick. So is it just kind of inevitable that as a city grows, you're going to have to take on debt to build out infrastructure to support the growth? Is that kind of?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah. Yep. And some of that debt, remember, is also in the utility funds. Years ago, there were CDA lease revenue bonds for TIF 7 when that was in existence to try to keep that off your debt capacity and such, and that's all been paid off. Okay. I'll mention a few things on the utility funds. We have a separate team that audits these, but they share their notes with me. And we'll start with the water fund that's up there. So a few different metrics on each one of these pages. Water has one additional one because of the fact that it's regulated by the PSC. And so when you get a rate approval from the PSC, it's a very exhaustive process, and that was done several years ago. So your rate of return that's been authorized is sitting at 5.3%. And that's, think of that as a target rate, okay? It's okay to go over, it's not unusual to be under, but if it's continually under, and it has been under for the last couple of years, that might be an opportunity, or not an opportunity, but a time to look at the rates to make sure that they're so sufficient, because you're not hitting what the PSC has actually authorized. And you can kind of see how that's been played out below here. So that blue line represents the revenues, the black line are the expenses. So the blue line, as you can see, is very flat. And that's pretty typical in a water utility that has not raised its rates, because the customer base may not be growing a whole lot. There's a lot of water conservation efforts going on by individuals and businesses. So it's been pretty flat. The revenues decreased actually a little bit from last year, very slightly, but expenses continue to go up because the costs, and I just heard the approval of some bills and things like that, those continue to go upwards and are in some situations somewhat out of your control. So operating expenses did increase again last year because of purchase power for well number 6, some salary increases that ran through there, cross connection inspection costs, and engineering services that were charged to that fund. So that's one thing. If the revenues stay flat, expenses continue to creep up, that margin gets pretty narrow, and it could be time to look at those rates. So I think the city's doing that this summer, later this fall. Another metric is further down this page, and that's the unrestricted reserves, and that's the focus there is on your cash. There is no restriction on your cash, again, because there's no revenue bonds outstanding. So at the end of the year is 5.7. If you compare that to the expenses, you have 24 months or 2 years worth of operating cash. We generally recommend 3 months for operations at a minimum, and then up to 12 months for unanticipated capital needs. So that's 12 to 15 months. You're at 24 again, so that fund is in very good shape as far as the cash goes. The bottom is taking a look at the plant. How much has been, because they're all capital intensive funds, how much has been financed through earnings versus debt? And we always generally recommend for a growing community like this to try to be 50% or better coming through earnings. And you are, with my glasses on here again, at 98%, because there is not a lot of outstanding debt in this fund. Okay, so no concerns there. Switching gears to the sewer fund. So no regulatory requirements on this. And you can see over the last 5 years, the black line being expenses again, the blue revenues, almost a mirror image of each other. Actually, the first couple of years, pretty much in sync, and then expenses began to exceed, but now the revenues are a little bit above. So operating revenues did go up a little bit from last year by $248,000 or 8.4%. Operating expenses also went up though by $213,000 or 7.6%. And that was driven by some costs that were passed through from MMSD. So there were some the revenues are up though because the rates were increased in Q1 of 2024 in anticipation of those costs that were going to be passed through by MMSD. Unrestricted reserves are strong in this one, not quite to the level that we saw in the water fund, but you have 12.5 months, so no concerns there. And the plant or capital is derived from 83% earnings. So again, strong over that 50% that we're looking for. And then lastly, the stormwater utility. A little bit more volatility in this fund, which is pretty common to see. And as you can see, the first 3 years, expenses actually exceeded the revenues for operations. And they've kind of come together the last couple of years. So revenues were up $121,000 or 13%. That's consistent with the increase to storm rates of 10.4%. So they kind of went up in sync together. But expenses went up as well, $89,000 or 9%. And that's again related to some salary increases and the repair of a box culvert in inlet gates. Unrestricted reserves here took a tick up about 2.5 months or so. That's again due to those new rates coming into effect. So you're at 16 months, and the majority, almost 100% of the investment in capital is through earnings in this fund. So again, all three utility funds are in good shape. Just keeping an eye on those rates in the water fund is, what we would recommend and what you're doing.
Any additional questions? All right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for having us.
Now we'll get this out.
Now, can I do that? Okay, so I make a motion to accept the 2024 financial statements.
Motion by Alderman Humke, is there a second?
Second.
I think Alder Swanson? Okay.
He can have it.
Motion before the vote. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of accepting the 2024 financial statements presented by Baker Tilly, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? And that motion passes. Alder Hockey.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the contract for auditing services from Baker Tilly LLP for 2025 through 2027, in the amount of $56,350 for 2025, $58,000 for 2026, and $59,750 for 2027.
Motion by Alder Hockey, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Harrison. Any discussion on this one?
I just say this is I don't track audit costs that closely, but I think this is a pretty reasonable cost for an audit, due in large part, as I mentioned, to the great work that Brian and team do on an ongoing basis. So I think we're fortunate to only be spending that on the audit. Always be great if it was less, but we're leveraging city staff time very effectively, and that's a great thing to say about our departments.
I reiterate what Alder Little said. I actually am somewhat familiar with audit costs, and I do feel like this is a good deal. And reiterates what the auditors have said about Mr. Lamers and the work that he does, like year round. It is an effort, I know, to make that happen year round, but like the results that come through in the audit and what we're able to do and keep these costs down and have a really like great and clean audit is wonderful. So, and I have been on, as long as I've been on council, we've had Baker Tilly and they've done a fantastic job, I feel like, every year I've been here. So, really happy that we can continue working with them.
Any other discussion? Some further discussion?
Do we need to read to them? There's usually a read book.
Oh, yes, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So Baker Tilly LLP has proposed a 3-year renewal, staff research auditing contracts among area municipalities, and the cost of the contract is in line with what other municipalities are paying for auditing services. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you. I guess any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of approving the contract for auditing services from Baker Tilly LLP for 2025 to 2027 in the amount specified, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? And that motion passes. Anything further from Brian?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. With that, we move on to 10B, which is Plan Commission. Alder Swanson.
So, Plan Commission, sorry, let me find the forecast. Okay, I was going for the more third part. Resolution number 25-016, approving the certified survey map to modify 2 existing lots located at 811 and 821 North Drive. We approved this in Planning Commission because they were just separating a lot. There wasn't really anything more to it.
Okay.
I think, yeah, there were questions about like making sure the easements were aligned and stuff, but nothing came up that or looked faulty.
Would you like to make a motion since it?
I didn't think we needed a motion on it.
We do.
We do. Okay. Move to approve the resolution, number 25-016 as described.
Motion by Alder Swanson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Harrison. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of resolution number 25-016, approving a certified survey map to modify 2 existing lots located at 811 and 821 Mark Drive, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? And that motion passes. Anything further from Plan Commission?
None further, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Then move on to 10C, Public Safety and Welfare. Alder Harrison.
First, we have a discussion and possible action regarding approval of alcohol license renewal applications for the 2025 to 2026 license period.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, should I start with a motion?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
Let's go.
Move to approve alcohol license renewal applications for the 2025 to 2026 license period.
Motion by Alder Harrison. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Swanson. Alder Harrison.
31 applications for 2025 to 2026 retail alcohol license renewals were received by the city clerk. Premise inspections by the building inspector and fire department are complete. Staff recommend approval of liquor license renewal applications. Verona Wine Cellar and Schultz Vending are not renewing their licenses. There's one more thing to note here. We talked in public safety about an overdue bill that Cahoots has, that we don't want to renew their license until they've paid that bill. So I don't know how to retroactively amend my motion to include that, but.
I could say, since that was the intent from public safety, I would ask for unanimous consent from council to just everyone listed except for Cahoots until they pay the bill.
Yes, so we can still approve their license, but the statutes won't allow me to actually issue
Issue
it
that.
until they've paid their wholesaler invoices. So I guess just contingent upon, the issuance of Cahoots license will be contingent upon them paying their debts to their wholesaler.
Okay, thank you. I guess I asked for unanimous consent to change the original motion. Okay. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion. All those in favor of approving the alcohol license renewals for the 2025 to 2026 license period with the contingency specified regarding Cahoots, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Alder Harrison.
Next, we have a motion to approve cigarette, tobacco, and electronic vaping device renewal applications for the 2025 to 2026 license period.
Motion by Alder Harrison. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Swanson. Alder Harrison.
There were 9 applications for the 2025 to 2026 cigarette and tobacco products retail licenses. The list of applicants is included in the packet, and we've heard from police staff that we recommend approval.
Excellent. Questions or comments on this motion? See no further discussion. All those in favor of the approval of the cigarette, tobacco, and electronic vaping device renewal applications for 2025 to 2026 licensing period, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No, passes. Alder Harrison.
Next, we move to approve a sidewalk cafe permit renewal for Toot and Kate's Wine Bar located at 109 South Main Street, Verona.
Motion by Alder Harrison. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Tucker. Alder Harrison.
This is the second year that Toot and Kate's is applying for a sidewalk cafe permit. There were no issues with the sidewalk cafe during 2024 to 2025, and staff recommend approval.
Questions or comments on this motion? Alder Weiss.
Yes, is this like an annual thing that must be continually done annually?
Yes, that is part of what we established in the ordinance about this last year.
Oh, so the sidewalk permit itself is somewhat new, and so it's
Yes.
on an annual basis.
Created essentially almost at the request of Toot and Kate's, but we hope other businesses will take advantage as well.
Okay.
So.
Or at least we hope other businesses.
Yeah.
I will say, as someone who's had through the discussions for all this stuff, I'm super glad it worked out well. And I'm glad that the business is doing well. Other comments? Seeing no further discussion. All those in favor of approving the sidewalk cafe permit renewal for Toot and Kate's Wine Bar located at 109 South Main Street, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion passes. Alder Harrison.
Next, we have a motion to approve ordinance number 25-1068, amending Title V.
Did that come out of public safety?
It did not come out of public safety.
Okay.
We passed on it we deferred on this
Okay.
one. I will not continue reading the rest of it, I think.
Okay, so no motion before the body. I guess it is on the agenda, so if anyone wants to talk about it, if not, my understanding is that public safety is gonna take another crack at it and bring it back at the next meeting, or at some point, Alder Johnson.
Yeah, most of you, I think, were in the room when we were talking about it, but there were some questions regarding the devices covered by the ordinance as written, and we want some more research done, courtesy of the administrator and his staff.
Okay. So unless anyone has.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Okay, so my comment would be that I think there's gonna be a lot of people in violation, I'm not gonna name names, of this ordinance if it were to come in, just because of like, there's like, I would encourage you to look at the distance requirements, since most people don't have their their like stoves or whatever this would be, fire structures 15 feet from their house. If they have patios or porches that they have them on, also like solo stoves or something like it are very common in our community and just in general in the summertime. And I would really encourage you, these currently don't fall under this regulation, like they would be not compliant with this regulation. So I would highly, highly encourage you to understand how that would or wouldn't work with this, and that you be really clear with the public if you're going to try to, if that is going to be the case going forward.
Other questions or comments? Alder Long.
So it also specifies that, a recreational fire pit needs to be certified by a national listing agency. Or it says be an approved brick pit with chimney. Who approves the brick pits with chimney, and, what constitutes a national listing agency?
Does anyone want to take a crack at that? I think, what is the NSF? Is that something that's on the packages, or is that something else?
I don't know what
Chief
NSF
Mahoney.
I don't see Chief Mahoney.
Yeah,
Speaking of National Science Foundation.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's just something that the staff should take into account. I guess I'll have my own comment. I really just want to make it so, like, if you go to Blaine's or Menards or Ace and you buy a fire pit, it's fine. You know, like you're not gonna like buy something at Blaine's and then get a ticket, because I feel like people would be pretty mad about that. And I don't feel like it'd be very fair. Alder Long.
I also, would just like to piggyback off what, Alder Hilton said, because, at least 15 feet from structures, a lot of newer lots are pretty small. And so I would encourage public safety when they review this to see if that's truly a necessary minimum, because I know that's gonna be very difficult for people and may actually require people to move their fire pits off of the stone patio, which seems like it would be a safer place to hold it. So, just something to think about is to really evaluate how far away from a structure is truly necessary.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Do you think it would, I guess, like, would you feel comfortable with a fire like 10 or 5 feet from, you know, a building? I think that was one of the like things we're addressing with this, is that there were fires that were closer to buildings than this. So we're like specifically addressing that need. But I'm not trying to just argue your point and wanting to, you know, see exactly the like nature of your request here and make sure I'm addressing the need most appropriately.
Yeah, I'm totally fine clarifying. What I'm thinking of is in going through the neighborhoods, I see lots of people that have like driveway fires, and then all the neighbors stop by as they walk around, and it's a really neat community building kind of a thing. But 15 feet away, for people who have shorter driveways, is gonna put them like right at the street or potentially at the angled sloped part of their driveway. Or if they're in the backyard and they have a shed, that can really limit where things go. So I guess when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about people with like an enclosed fire pit that they've purchased, having to have it 15 feet away from their own house.
Yeah, putting them in possibly a less safe situation than
Putting
like
them
a
in
little
the
bit
grass,
closer,
right.
but like on the sidewalk.
Right.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Or if they have the kind of driveway where the house is like an L shape around the driveway, or it potentially puts them at a weird end of the driveway by the grass instead of in the center of the driveway. So I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I agree. I wouldn't want someone setting up a fire less than 15 feet away from someone else's building, but that's more of a lot line thing rather than a structure thing necessarily. Perhaps I'm not sure how that would be.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
what you need.
perfect for,
Okay,
for answering my question.
Any other comments or questions on this one? All right, I guess we'll wait for more information. Anything further from public safety?
Nothing further.
Excellent. With that, we'll move on to item 11, which is new business. First up, we have 11A, which is a discussion of possible action regarding the status of the potential purchase of the Field of Dreams. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just an update on kind of what we've learned and done over the last month plus related to the city potentially purchasing the Field of Dreams from the Verona Area School District. Kind of as we've done our due diligence and really dug into the possibility of purchasing the property, a couple of things have cropped up and a couple of things have happened kind of in the intervening period since we started this. First, it's our understanding that the softball club would likely be using the field on a daily basis as it has. And so the recreational programming that we thought that we would get out of the fields has diminished significantly. So there's that. Also, a couple of weeks ago, we learned that the Miracle League is fundraising for a field in Sun Prairie. So the Sun Prairie School District has kind of an inclusive sports complex that they are going to build. And in doing so, kind of fragmented the Miracle League, the potential for fundraising for a field here in Verona, but also the user base too becomes more fragmented. Though again, with a field in Cottage Grove and a field in Sun Prairie, there still isn't a field on this side of Madison. So we'll just kind of set that aside for a moment. Another thing that we discovered is that when the person who was kind of in charge of scoping out and potentially going to build the Miracle League field, he did come when softball games were going on at the fields, and it was absolutely his contention that the parking lot would have to be expanded in order to accommodate dual events going on at the same time. So that was something that cropped up. The parking lot would have had to have been enlarged. Also, the Rotary Club was not keen on paying for a bathroom on the site, which would have been a requirement for us to do that. So that kind of dropped off the project list for what would have been fundraised for. So in sum, between Casey, the recreation director, and I, when we kind of looked at in totality what the value of the city would get from purchasing the property versus what we would pay for it, in the end, I think given all the due diligence that we did, we wouldn't recommend purchasing the property. Now, that said, the school district continues to be a very good partner with the city, and having gone kind of through this exercise, one of the things that I said to Deputy Superintendent Weezy is, hey, would there be maybe a potential for a Miracle Field on school district property? And so they do have areas, they're pretty easy to think about where they are, where they do have larger areas or larger fields, and they do have a lot of parking to accommodate events like this. So anyway, what I did is I told him that I would help in any way, foster any connections that you need, even if it were to come back and Country View Elementary in that area would need to have some rejiggering of parcels or whatever, let us know. But anyway, that's kind of where things have been left off in this kind of little mini saga that we have here.
I got one quick question. So if the Miracle League came back and said, you know what, this is the perfect location, would we have a chance to then go back to the school district about this? Or, because it sounds like there's still kind of an ongoing discussion.
Oh, they're very interested in having a field here in Verona.
Right, but like if they, let's say they exhausted all their options at the school district and say, no, none of these will work, we wanna come back to this one, we would get another crack at it?
Yep, there's,
Okay.
yep, exactly.
Other comments, or questions?
Maybe I have a question about was the bathroom on the table initially and then they backed off of it, or did we misunderstand that? Cause that was a big plus for.
Our understanding was the building of the field, the bathroom, and an inclusive playground. And towards the end here, it was just the field that they would fundraise and pay for.
So maybe there was some if I'm interpreting right, that there was some stuff up in the air that we thought maybe could happen, and then it went from maybe to no.
Yeah, I just was wondering too if, okay, or if it was like a combination of that and this other field that then maybe they couldn't afford all of the things, and so that dropped off because of that. I was surprised to see when it came. I saw it when it hit the news about the other field. I was surprised given the excitement when they came, but it was, so it's a great idea and I would love for something like this to be for owner. So it's disappointing to hear that this is the case, but I appreciate the update.
We're still very interested in fundraising for a field in Verona. Just a little different than we initially thought.
Alder Turner.
How much are we talking about price difference wise for a bathroom?
It really depends on the bathroom and what you want to construct, as you know, on the park commission.
I know, that's
I think Epic, at Epic Park, we had what, a $500,000 bathroom over there, which is the bathrooms, and I think there's a shelter on that too. So it's really dependent on what you'd like to build. Obviously ADA accessible in this particular case is important. But I guess we had between Casey and I, in our minds, it was probably a structure like the one you see at Epic Park.
And is there a possibility of building the field and then fundraising for a bathroom at a later stage? Or does it have to be in place before the field could be used? And are they asking us to pay for the bathroom now?
Yes.
Or they just say they don't need a bathroom?
They are asking for us to pay for it. At that location, as you might be aware, at Country View Elementary, just north of there, there's no permanent bathroom. They use porta-johns. So if the field were built, the school district says it'd be accommodating, and they would, of course. But even the distance to go from the field to the school is a healthy amount, and yeah. So if you build the field, you need access to a bathroom.
And do we pay for the porta-johns right now, or the school district does, or
I think the
softball?
softball club might be paying for it. Don't quote me on that, we're not. But either the school district or the softball club.
Okay. I guess I'm feeling disappointed that a bathroom might stop this project. And I'm wondering if we could talk.
It's two things, right? It's the bathroom, but it's also, we're going to buy the softball fields too, and now we don't really have nearly as much access to them as we thought we would, and the programming that would go along with the access to it. So that's what we're looking at.
Oh, and we'd have to expand the parking lot potentially.
Yes.
Right. Can you clarify what you mean by we wouldn't have as much access to them as we thought we would?
Yep. So in our discussions, we thought we would have nights available purely for like rec leagues and stuff like that for city rec, and the understanding was not that at the end. It would be that we continue using the 5 nights a week.
That softball would use them 5 nights a week?
Yes.
Okay, so did that change because the school district is not willing to let softball use any of their fields?
There is some usage, I understand, of their fields as well, but even so, I guess you'd have to ask Casey the details about that.
Okay,
But my understanding is we would not get nearly as much programming, if any, as we thought we would. For programming.
okay. And, can you remind me again, the school district would not sell the property if we don't buy it right now? Or, cause you said we would get another crack at it, but like,
It's up to the school district what they would want to do with that property. However, if you look through the agreements on the property, it is parkland only, can be on in that area. So green space or improved into whatever parkland would be. So it can't be subdivision or something like that.
okay. And have we looked at all, are there other organizations besides Miracle League that do these sort of sports complexes?
I'm unaware for that type of activity. I will say, Casey mentioned when the Little League did their, kind of built their complex and did the fields over there, it was $1 million fundraised by Little League and $1 million contributed by the city for that.
Okay. And have we as a city contributed anything like that to softball?
Not to my knowledge.
Other thoughts or questions? I'll just say, I do think it is disappointing because I thought that would be a good location. And I guess I would ask everyone, staff included, that if it doesn't work out with the school district, that we kind of keep an open mind and maybe we have to, if they can't get it on the school district, maybe they can come back and we can figure something out. Maybe we can't, but I would really like it if this facility was in Berlin. I think it'd be great for the community. Other questions or comments? Okay. Oh, sorry.
So it says discussion of possible action, are we, but the potential motion section is, like, are we looking for, like, what potentially could be the action we're looking for right now?
It was intended as an update more than anything.
Oh, okay.
I will say though that I always prefer to put action on these just because in case someone was like, well, I do want to make a motion right now. If it's only discussion only, it's like, well, you can't. So it's like, well, just in case, even if you don't think it's like, I want to preserve that option for the body. Okay. Unless there's any surprise motions, we will move on to 11B, which is a discussion of possible action regarding the pre-annexation review agreement between the City of Verona and Fiduciary Real Estate Development Inc. Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fiduciary Real Estate Development, Inc. is contemplating development of property located in the town of Verona, but immediately adjacent to the city. As part of the development, Fiduciary Real Estate Development, Inc. anticipates submitting an annexation petition to the city. The process of reviewing the anticipated annexation petition and all plans and documents associated with the development will cause the city to incur significant direct and indirect expenses, including, but not limited to, staff time and fees and expenses incurred by the city for outside consultant services related to the review, e.g. engineers, attorneys, accountants, planners, and other professionals. The city recovers the fees at cost. City staff recommend approval of the agreement.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions on the site? On what?
I might be just out of date with this. I'm not calling where Fiduciary's land is located that they're looking at developing, or is that to be shared at a later time?
That's the Bacchus properties, right? Yep. Yeah, so it's just north of yeah, Casey's, on the west side though.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments or motions? Alder Tucker.
I know that city staff recommends approval of the agreement, but I'm curious, what is the risk to us if we approve this? Are there any like concerns we should be aware of if we approve this?
Mr. Allen or Mr. Kleinmeyer, our attorney, would be better.
Should I go up there or where do you go?
As long as you can be on camera, so. All right.
Well,
Whatever.
All right, I'll go here, it'll make it easier. We started doing these agreements probably about, let's say, 6 to 8 years ago. It's solely intended to make sure that there's no risk to us to have to cover any costs in case the development starts and then for whatever reason they have to back away, which happens sometimes, but we want to make sure that the developer has to pay all the costs, and that's the purpose of the agreement.
okay. So just to clarify, we are approving an agreement that clarifies that they're going to reimburse us for all the costs, not putting us in any position where we're approving an annexation.
Correct, and there's even language within the document that explicitly says that simply by executing this agreement, the city is not bound to approve anything.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I move to approve the pre-annexation review agreement between the City of Verona and Fiduciary Real Estate Development, Inc.
Motion by Alder Tucker Long, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Leno. Motion before the voting. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the pre-annexation review agreement between the City of Verona and Fiduciary Real Estate Development Inc., signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? That motion passes. Now next we'll move on to 11C, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the Cascade Development Agreement. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. The development is located on the northeast corner of the intersection of County Highway M and Stony Ridge Circle, adjacent to the West Madison Bible Church. The annexation agreement with Cascade Development, West Madison Bible Church, and Psalms Partners is for the development of land located along County Highway M and County Highway PD, which passed 7-0 by the Common Council on February 13th, 2023. The developer is seeking to build 496 multifamily units and 99,267 square feet of commercial land. As part of the development agreement, the following provisions related to public improvements include: the developer is responsible for public improvements applicable to serve the subdivision, including installation of public sanitary sewer, public storm sewer, water, streets, sidewalks, stormwater management, gas, electric, cable, telephone, traffic signals, street lights, and street trees for dedication to the city. All improvements shall be completed within 18 months of the execution of the agreement. The developer shall construct and install a public path to be used by the public and emergency vehicles extending from the end of the Avalon Ridge cul-de-sac to County Highway PD in accordance with construction standards of the city. Traffic signals. The developer shall construct traffic signals and associated geometric improvements at the intersection of Morningside Boulevard and County Highway M pursuant to the plans prepared by the developer and approved by the city and Dane County Highway Department. The developer shall be responsible for paying 27.8% of the soft costs and construction costs, including but not limited to survey, design, traffic modeling, permits, construction document preparation, review costs, traffic, signal equipment, material testing, construction engineering, and construction. The developer shall pay all project costs for the traffic signal improvements. The $575,548 identified in section 4F sub 2 of the annexation agreement, that is to be paid by the developer to the city, shall be reduced by the project costs for the traffic signal improvements paid by the developer, less the 27.8% of the project costs. That is responsibility of the developer. The developer is also responsible for city costs and other fees to include MMSD fees, city water impact and sanitary sewer connection fees, land dedication fees, and land reservation. Lastly, the developer is also required to provide an irrevocable letter of credit to secure performance under this agreement and pursuant to the subdivision ordinance.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions on this item?
Can I ask a question, just quick, has anything changed from when we approved it, like the layout, that was, I didn't think, it looked the same, but I just wanted to verify.
Yeah, I think they had some other projects going on and they waited a long time. So I remember asking both Mr. Olick and Mr. Severson, like, you approved that, like, what's going on?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Questions, comments, or motions on this item? Alderman Swanson.
I move to approve the Cascade Development Agreement as described.
Motion by Alderman Swanson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Harrison. Motion before the vote. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the Cascade Development Agreement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? And that motion passes. All right, we'll move on to 11D, which is a discussion and possible action regarding ordinance number 25-1067, amending Title 2, Chapter 4, Boards, Commissions, and Committees of the Code of Ordinances, City of Verona. Mr. Olick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item seeks residency requirement changes to section 2-4-12, residency required for service on boards, commissions, or committees. Section 2-4-3, library board, Verona Public Library, and section 2-4-10, the Tourism Commission. And Mr. Mayor, Alderbeth did submit these issues for their explanation.
Alderman Carpenter.
Thank you. In going through some ordinances and reading through them, there were a lot of inconsistencies in how we label things between these ordinances, and also some variations in residency requirements. One of the things that that I noted was that certain boards had residency requirements and certain ones didn't. It wasn't consistent between boards that service just the city versus a wider area. So for instance, like our tourism board, if someone owns a business but lives just outside of Verona, they do still have a vested interest in the tourism here. In fact, potentially even more so than a resident of Verona who does not own a business here. And so just trying to get the makeup of the boards to match the parties that would be most interested in the mission of the boards. So we have a diverse group of people, and we also have representation from all the people that this affects. With the library board, we're required to appoint a non-resident, let's see, that's appointed by Dane County, and it wasn't clear that whether or not that person was or was not restricted to residency. So it's just clearing that up so it's very clear when it is required and when it's not. And then same thing with tourism commission. And then I also removed a couple of places where it said alderman, because we have more than just men on our board, so trying to make it a little cleaner.
Alder Humke and myself.
Does this affect anybody that currently sits on one of these things? No.
Okay, so for the library board, then just so I'm clear, the mayoral appointments for the 5 slots for the mayoral thing, those will all still be part of the city of Aurora residents, right? Is that accurate or no?
Yes, I just switched, because I'm trying to make consistent wording, so we use the same wording, and everywhere else we say city of Verona residents, and here it says citizens.
Okay.
And so it's just making the wording more consistent for clarity purposes.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, I do think that, like, the library does provide service well beyond City of Verona. However, the library board should be biased towards City of Verona residents, like, just to be clear about it. Okay. Alder Swanson.
Regarding the language suggested for the Tourism Commission with specifically the City of Verona.
Talk a little louder.
Sorry. So regarding the Tourism Commission language, specifically the City of Verona business person, do we need to clarify more specifically what a business person is? Like, should we clarify that it's an owner or operator of a business with grounds within the City of Verona limits? Would that be helpful to clarify in the purpose of clarification?
I actually took that wording from the Verona Economic Development Commission, so it's another ordinance that had already been written, and so we're already using that exact wording in our other ordinances, so I was just, again, trying to have consistent wording used, but I am not at all opposed to defining it further. I like things to be very clear. I just wanted to start with getting the wording to be consistent, so.
All right, yeah, I'm happy to put a pin in that and take it as is and then maybe change it down the line.
I guess I have a question as well. We're talking along. So when you say like City of Verona business person, without naming like specific business or person, like, because if say, like for example, when I was in high school and college, I worked at the local grocery store. Would I have counted for the Oconomowoc Tourism Commission as a business person, as someone who stocks shelves?
I think that might be an Attorney Kleinmeyer question on what that word actually means. Like I said, I don't fully understand the legalities of the definition of that word. It's just what we use to define the person who can be on the Economic Development Commission in a different ordinance. And it seemed like consistency would be there.
I guess I wouldn't get too hung up on it from the standpoint of it's still going to be your choice anyway. In other words, like for example, if this language talks about tourism commission shall consist of 5 members who shall be a City of Verona resident or a City of Verona business person. It may be that somebody is, let's say, a general manager of a restaurant. So they're not an owner or an operator, but they're the person who's maybe most knowledgeable of what happens there. This is broad enough to include them, but it seems to me like the way that the discussion has gone, you want broad because you have the ability to narrow the scope of that definition by yourself simply as part of the appointment process.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments? Or motions, I suppose. Alder Hernal.
Just getting back to the list here. Here we go. I move to approve ordinance number 25-1067, amending Title 2, Chapter 4, Boards, Commissions, and Committees of the Code of Ordinances, City of Verona.
Motion by Alder Tucker Long, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Humke. Anything to add on to Alder Tucker Long?
If anybody else has any thoughts on it, like, this further, but like I said, I'm moving towards consistency.
Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion. All those in favor of approving ordinance number 25-1067, amending Title II, Chapter 4, Boards, Commissioners, and Committees of the Code of Ordinances, City of Verona, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We'll move on to 11E, which is a discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 25-017, authorizing TAP grant application, Main Street multi-use path. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Verona is seeking to provide bicycle and pedestrian connections that promote safety and quality of life. And the city has identified a project known as the North Main Street Multi-Use Path that would provide a paved connection from Bering Drive to Cross Country Road. The North Main Street Multi-Use Path would improve safety by improving an off-road alternative to North Main Street and would connect to an existing multi-use path south to Sugar Creek Elementary School and to Badger Ridge Middle School, and would connect to an existing multi-use path north to County Highway PD, McGee Road, and connect to Raymond Road. The Wisconsin DOT is accepting applications for the allocation of federal funds under the 2026 to 2030 Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP, and the application process requires that a local resolution of support be executed by the governing body for the project. And just in sheer numbers, the DOT share would be $300,000, and the local share of this project would be $75,000 if awarded. So it's an 80-20 split.
Questions, comments, or motions? Alder Harrison.
Literally like the half block by like the La Petite. Is that what we're talking about? That's the whole stretch of the path that we're talking about here.
Let's see here.
From Bering, I'm looking at it. It's
Bering
like,
across Country Road.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying.
I think there's a retaining wall there too, which makes it more expensive.
Oh, I see.
Questions, comments, or motions? Alder Jackalon.
I move to approve resolution 2025-017, authorizing TAP grant application for the Main Street multi-use path.
Motion by Alder Jackalon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Harrison. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Alder Humphrey.
I still think I don't really understand this. I mean, I think like in concept reading it, it all makes sense, but I think if there's, are we creating a wider path? Because it says it already exists, like that there's.
I'm under the understanding that it's a narrow path and it needs to get widened in order to be multi-use.
Okay.
So that's.
So it's still that's what the stretch that Alder Harrison is talking about, is just is a wider path. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. Okay. That's all.
I guess I'll call myself quick. I think we should be applying for as many grants as we can. Our own citizens pay taxes to the state and the feds, and we should get some money back in the community. And I'm always in favor of path improvements as well. Other questions or comments on the motion?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that my comment is like, I thought there was already a path there. So yeah, clarifying that there is in fact a sidewalk, it just needs to be widened. That is good to know.
If you're a biker, you're on the road there.
Yeah, from the
Right.
path that you've taken the entire way down. That makes sense.
Other questions or comments? All right. All those in favor of resolution number 25-017, authorizing TAP grant application, Main Street multi-use path, signify by saying
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We move on to 11F, which is a discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 25-018, authorizing TAP grant application, Military Ridge State Trail. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Verona is seeking to provide bicycle and pedestrian connections that provide connections within the city and promote safety and quality of life. And the city has identified a project known as the Military Ridge State Trail that would provide a paved connection from Old PB to 400 feet west of Wildcat Way. The Military Ridge State Trail Improvement Project would improve safety by improving an off-road alternative to Verona Avenue, would provide additional connections to the Ice Age National Scenic Trail and Badger Mill Creek Trail, and would improve access to downtown Verona, the Senior Center, and Verona High School. The DOT, Wisconsin DOT is accepting applications for allocation of federal funds under the TAP program for 2026 to 2030. And the application process requires that a local resolution of support be executed by the governing body for the project. And the 80-20 split, 80% DOT is $563,625, and the local match, the 20% would be $140,906.25.
Other thoughts?
So to clarify, this is that project that we were talking about a couple weeks back that DOT wasn't gonna give us, was it not DOT, DNR, wasn't gonna give us anything for, but we can apply for this grant to take a lot of the weight off us?
Nope, we're applying for both, so
Okay.
we're waiting on a response back from DNR.
Got it.
Yep, and this is another grant opportunity
Okay.
to pave the trail, so.
Cool.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Assistant City Administrator Ann Frywald said she wants to get a grant in front of you guys at least once a month.
That's a,
We
that's a
got,
good.
we got June and July covered.
I think she knew better than
Apply for all benefits, Alderman.
Yeah, I just wanted to actually say that, like, I really feel like, you know, having, Ms. Farwell on staff has made a huge difference, and like, these are the types of things that we were hoping she'd be able to do, and it's really exciting, because that's real money impacting our community, like the mayor said. Getting the money back that we have already paid in our taxes is just huge, and I'm really grateful that we're seeing these types of things.
Okay, wait,
Other questions, comments, or motions on this item? Alder Swanson.
I'll move to approve resolution 2025-018, authorizing TAP grant application Military Ridge State Trail.
Motion by Alder Swanson, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Helke. Motion before the body, questions or comments, on the motion? See no further discussion? All those in favor of resolution number 25-018, authorizing TAP grant applications, Military Ridge State Trail, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion passes. I will move on to 11G, which is a discussion and possible action on the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Fitchburg, the City of Verona, and the Town of Verona, Fitch-Verona Emergency Medical Services Intergovernmental Agreement. Before I turn over to Mr. Alec, I just want to say this is marked as potentially going to closed session, but based on our discussion last time, I don't know if we need to. Mr. Alec.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The town chair and of the town of Verona, mayors of the cities of Fitchburg and Verona, and administrators of all three municipalities have met to discuss potential amendments to the current agreement. Proposed amendments include changes to the membership of the EMS Commission to reflect the proportion of contribution of participating municipalities, a revised funding structure to account for the proportions of equalized value, call volume, and population, creating a calculation to determine shares of equity to account for the proportion of a municipality's prior contributions to the district, clarifying withdrawal and termination procedures, and clarifying and cleaning up various sections. Tonight, city staff would like to discuss the following changes and additions with the Common Council. The two changes made by the town, which are appended to the agreement in your packet. The concept that unassigned funds would be distributed upon withdrawal or termination, but that the assigned and restricted funds would not be, as they are already accounted for. Some additional changes to the termination section along these lines. The most recent audit, now to be conducted annually, shall be used for the purposes of determining value for an allocation or distribution upon withdrawal or termination. For equipment, ambulances, or other assets, book value will be used to determine the value. Only money will be distributed to the town per its request. The cities of Verona and Fitchburg will agree to split up the equipment and ambulances based on the allocation formula in the agreement, plus consideration of the book value of the equipment and ambulances. And the council, as the mayor mentioned, may opt to go into closed session to discuss the terms and conditions of the agreement.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, motions, otherwise, then,
So the change for the town of Verona to receive cash rather than an allocation of assets, is that, can you unpack that a little bit for me?
Or I could take it. I mean, yeah, the thing is that the town of Verona is never gonna run its own ambulance services. So if they got an ambulance or some other bit of equipment, they couldn't do anything with it. They basically have to turn around and sell it, which would be a hassle. They just want money, as opposed to the city of Fitchburg and the city of Verona. We almost need the ambulances if we were ever gonna withdraw. Because if they only gave us money and there's like a 4-year lead time on an ambulance, what are we gonna do, not have an ambulance for 4 years, or buy like some rickety used one that's like on its last legs? So it's kind of trying to give everyone what they want, so the cities would be able to get ambulances out of it, and the towns would be able to get money, because they don't have any, because they'd be contracting with the city of Rona or Pittsburgh or somebody else to get ambulance services.
Okay, that makes sense.
I didn't see an agreement in the packet. So I didn't read anything. So that's my first thing. And my second question is, in terms of equipment is what like my main concern would always be in this type of situation is like, do we believe that we would have adequate equipment knowing that lead times are so long? That if like this dissolved, we have either enough notice to put in an order for an ambulance, or would there be enough actual assets on hand for us to do this?
It's hard to say without having seen what a withdrawal would look like. Because, you know, let's say we're going to withdraw and fold it into the fire department or
Yeah.
departments, we don't necessarily know what we would need because we need to do a reevaluation. Being not an expert, I think we can make it work from a withdrawal, especially with the lead time, because it's unlikely, you know, like, not that anyone's planning on withdrawing from the district, but let's say we're going to withdraw as soon as possible. We wouldn't be withdrawing for 2026, and maybe not for 2027. So it's the kind of thing whoever was withdrawing or whatever, we'd be trying to negotiate like a potential 1 to 3 year
Okay.
lead time. Because I think, yeah, like if you try to set it up within a year, I feel like that's asking for trouble.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure everybody's protected, especially like our, you know, people that live here would be the most impacted by it.
Yeah.
So I just wanna make sure that everybody's protected, and also like the EMS staff, right, that they feel like they have adequate equipment to do their jobs properly and serve the community.
Yeah, I guess I would add on to that and say keeping the assigned balance with the district protects them on, you know, potential payouts upon retirement that they basically have promised now. And so we wouldn't want to have a situation where we withdraw from the district, we take some of the assigned money away, and then all of a sudden the district can't pay out their due benefits.
Got it, okay.
So that was kind of the discussion there. I guess I would ask Mr. Kleinmeyer, can we even, since it wasn't, I was looking at a different source, but can we even vote on this if it wasn't part of the packet, or should we vote on it?
I guess, just to let you know, Mr. Mayor, Holly is emailing it to everyone, and we could put it up in front. Really, the last page is the only difference between what they saw at the last meeting
Okay.
and this meeting.
I would, I guess I defer to the body, and if people don't feel comfortable, we could wait. If you look at the last page, it's fine, however people are feeling. But Mr. Kleinmeyer.
I agree with that. It's you know, we don't have an obligation to have it in the packet. Obviously, we try to have as many agreements as we can in the packet. It really comes down to comfort level of the alders as to whether or not you want to vote, or, you know, how much do you want to be able to look, you know, actually be able to look at the agreements. If you have a comfort level with, you know, because there's a lot of information in the memo about it. So yes, you can vote on it tonight if you want to. If you do, I know there's a recommended motion that Jamie put in the memo that I would utilize. But if you're not comfortable because you don't have the agreement and you don't feel like you've had a sufficient amount of time to review it, then you'd wait till the next meeting to do it.
I'll do it to everyone.
Would it be possible for us to take like a 15-minute recess and then come back and continue this item?
I guess how do people feel about a 15-minute recess? Nodding heads? Okay. We're gonna recess for 15 minutes until 8:40. And then to review, and then we'll come back and see how we feel about it. All right, see you at 8:40. All right, it is 8:40 and we are back in session regarding the intergovernmental agreement between the city of Fitchburg, the city of Verona, and the town of Verona. I hope everyone's had a chance to review everything. Questions, comments, and again, if people don't feel comfortable voting on us at this meeting, that's fine too. I'll turn it on.
In the document we were sent, on page 9, there's proposed changes from the Town of Verona Legal Counsel, and there's a 6.02 section. Does that include the red line changes that are above on page 6? The red line changes within the 6.02 paragraph there as well?
Right.
Mr.
I don't think I have a copy of what you guys are looking at.
Oh, sure. My understanding is that these are, basically we assign the town that section to revise, and that's the fully revised section back from the town.
Yes, that's my understanding too.
Yeah.
So the one on page 9 includes any changes that are made on 6?
But I think the one on page 9 is essentially intended to replace whatever is on page 6.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments, or people feel comfortable in motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement between the city of Fitchburg, city of Verona, and town of Verona, Fitchburg EMS to start, contingent upon final approval by the city attorney and city administrator.
Motion by Alder Humke, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Lidle, I think. Motion before the body, questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city of Fitchburg, the city of Verona, and the town of Verona, Fitchburg Emergency Medical Services District intergovernmental agreement with contingency specified, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. And of course, just to note, it is of course contingent on the city of Fitchburg and the town of Verona approving as well. So I guess we'll see what they do. With that, we'll move on to 11H, which is a discussion of possible action regarding the Director of Parks and Urban Forestry Employment Agreement. Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city of Verona has conducted a background check and extended an offer to a candidate for the Director of Parks and Urban Forestry. And per Mitch, who couldn't make it tonight, if there is going to be any questions about the background check, we should convene into closed session.
My understanding of the background checking, speaking broad terms, is that it came back fine. No criminal record of serial arson or anything like that. So, and as you know, they're extremely extensive. They're conducted by the police department. The police department does a great and extremely thorough job, as people who have undergone them can attest. So I do feel confident moving forward with that. Other questions or comments?
I just wanted to say, like, as just the chair of the personnel committee, I feel really confident in this. The person that we have selected for the Director of Parks and Urban Forestry has been quite the process, and I wasn't even here for part of it. That's how long this is, like, I think, is that true? Or, I can't remember, it feels like we've gone through multiple iterations at this point, so, I'm really excited, so I'm looking forward to this moving forward, hopefully with all, the rest of you all being on board. So, can I make a motion?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll move to approve the Director of Parks and Urban Forestry employment agreement.
Motion by Alder Humke, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Tagalona. Alder Swanson. I thought you had your hand up before.
No, I was, but I was gonna make the motion for that.
Oh, okay.
Alder Humke made it, so.
Sorry, point of information, is the individual's name in the packet or no?
No.
Okay. Have they accepted the contract?
They signed it.
Okay. I guess, is there a reason we're not announcing them
Oh,
right now?
we can. The name is Mark Wagner, and he's formerly employed with the city of Middleton.
I just wanted to, because this would have been weird, I'm like, the individual. But as someone who sat in the interviews, Mr. Wagner was great. Honestly, it was a competitive field. We had a lot of good applicants, which was really nice to see. And honestly, before his interview, I kind of thought we already had our candidate, and he was like that good that I changed my mind. So I think we're getting a really great hire, and I can't wait for him to start with the city and get out and work with all of us. Other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further, sorry.
Actually, I just wanna say a quick thank you to, Casey and Mike for covering this position, and even Brian Manning has, stepped up as well. These two departments, Parks and Public Works, have had a rough go of it with, lacking a public works director for so long and Parks covering, and now Parks missing their director and Public Works covering, and I just wanna say a big thank you to all the staff for stepping up and keeping things going while we get someone hired, so.
I agree.
Yeah.
All related.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the Director of Parks and Urban Forestry Employment Agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? And that motion passes. We'll move on to item 12, which is adjournment. Motion to adjourn be in order.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Alder Helmke, seconded by Alder Harrison, I think. It was really high. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? And we are adjourned at 8:46 p.m. Thank you, everyone.